The text came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was drifting off to sleep in our queen-sized bed that had grown colder over the past 6 months. Emergency business trip. Boss needs me in Albany first thing tomorrow. Will call when I can. Sarah. I stared at the glowing screen, my mechanic's hands still stained with grease from another 10-hour day at Murphy's Auto Repair. Sarah never texted like that. She called. She explained. She complained about her demanding boss, Mr. Harlan, and his last-minute requests. This felt different. My name is Danny Walsh, and I've been fixing cars in this fading upstate New York town for 15 years. I can tell when something's broken just by the sound it makes. Right now, my marriage was making all the wrong noises. I rolled over to Sarah's side of the bed. Her pillow still smelled like that expensive perfume she'd started wearing 3 months ago, the kind that cost more than I made in a week. The kind she claimed was a confidence booster for work. The next morning, I was elbow deep in a transmission when my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach drop. Harlan and Associates Law Firm. Danny, this is Mr. Harlan. Is Sarah feeling better today? I wiped my hands on a shop rag, buying time. Better? She called in sick yesterday. Food poisoning, I believe she said. I was hoping she'd be in today for the Morrison deposition. The wrench in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 50 pounds. Right. The food poisoning. She's still pretty rough. Well, tell her to rest up. We need her sharp for next week. I hung up and stared at my phone. Sarah hadn't been sick yesterday. She'd been at work, complaining about the Morrison case over dinner. She'd even brought home files to review. That evening, I sat in my garage, my sanctuary filled with half-finished projects and beer cans, and did something I hadn't done in 22 years of marriage. I opened Sarah's laptop. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Her password was still Emily 2006, our daughter's name and birth year. Some habits die hard, even when marriages don't. The travel portal showed no booked trips, no Albany, no emergency, but her browser history told a different story. Searches for romantic weekend getaways and discreet hotels near town from 2 weeks ago. I found the receipt stuffed behind her jewelry box later that night. The Pineview Motel, 20 minutes outside town. The same night she'd claimed to be working late on the Henderson case. My hand shook as I poured another beer. 22 years. 2 decades of shared dreams, inside jokes, and building something together. Our daughter Emily was a senior in high school, captain of the debate team, headed to college next fall. We were supposed to be planning our empty nest years, not this. The garage door creaked as Emily wandered in, phone glued to her ear as always. Mom's been super weird lately, she said to whoever was on the other end. Like all these late-night calls and she keeps giggling. It's gross. She noticed me listening and rolled her eyes. Dad's being weird too. Everyone in this house has lost their minds. After she left, I sat in the dark garage for another hour, nursing my beer and thinking. Sarah had always been ambitious, driven. It's what attracted me to her in college. She was going to be a lawyer, change the world. I was going to fix cars and be happy with simple things. Somewhere along the way, simple hadn't been enough. I pulled up the Find My Phone app on my tablet. Sarah's location showed as the Pineview Motel in real time. The Pineview Motel looked exactly like what it was, a place where people went to do things they couldn't do at home. Peeling paint, neon vacancy sign flickering against the October darkness, parking lot full of shadows and secrets. Sarah's silver Honda Civic sat in front of room 237. Next to it, a black BMW that I recognized from the law firm's parking lot. Ben Morrison. The client whose case Sarah had been working so hard on for the past 3 months. I parked across the street behind a broken streetlight and watched. The curtains were drawn, but I could see movement inside. Shadows dancing against the thin fabric. Ben Morrison was everything I wasn't. Tall, polished, inherited money from his real estate developer father. He wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage and spoke with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about making rent. I'd met him twice at firm functions. Both times, he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. I sat in my truck for an hour, rage building in my chest like pressure in an overheated engine. Then I got out and walked to Ben's BMW. The spark plug wires were easy to access. I'd done this repair 1,000 times, just never in reverse. I carefully disconnected 3 of them, ensuring the car would sputter and die within a few blocks. Then I took a napkin from my glove compartment and wrote, "Have a fun night, Sarah. We'll talk soon. Your loving husband." I tucked it under her windshield wiper and drove home. The next morning, Sarah came downstairs looking perfectly composed. Her hair was styled, makeup flawless, wearing the navy suit she saved for important meetings. "How was Albany?" I asked over my coffee. "Productive. Harlan's got 3 new cases he wants me to handle." She grabbed her travel mug and headed for the door. "I'll be late tonight. Depositions." "Drive safe," I said. "Watch out for car trouble." She paused at the door, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Then it was gone, replaced by that lawyer mask she'd perfected over the years. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just, you never know what might break down unexpectedly." After she left, I called in sick to Murphy's and spent the day doing something I'd never done before, investigating my own wife. Her credit card statements, which came to our shared email, told an interesting story. Expensive lunches at restaurants I'd never heard of. A weekend at the Marriott in Syracuse when she'd claimed to be at a legal conference in Buffalo. Lingerie purchases from Victoria's Secret, none of which I'd seen her wear. But the real smoking gun was hidden in her dresser drawer, underneath the birth control pills she'd been taking, despite the fact that I'd had a vasectomy 5 years ago. A burner phone. The text history made my stomach turn. Months of messages between Sarah, Ben, and someone named Jay, who seemed to be coordinating their meetings. The language was explicit, detailed, and left no doubt about what had been happening. But it was the message thread with Jay that really caught my attention. "Danny's getting suspicious. Saw him drive by the office twice this week. Don't worry, he's too stupid to figure it out. Blue-collar guys like him don't think past their next beer. Still, maybe we should cool it for a while." "Why? What's he going to do? File for divorce? He can't afford a lawyer good enough to beat you in court. You'll get the house, the savings, probably alimony. Danny will end up in some studio apartment visiting Emily every other weekend." "You're right. God, I can't wait until this is all over." I took photos of every message, every receipt, every piece of evidence. Then I carefully put everything back exactly where I'd found it. That evening, I was in the garage when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained a single photo. Me standing next to Ben's BMW in the motel parking lot, clearly tampering with something under the hood. The message read, "Interesting hobby. We should talk." I stared at the photo for 10 minutes, my mind racing. Someone had been watching me watch Sarah. In this small town, that narrowed it down to a handful of possibilities, none of them good. The next morning at Murphy's, I was distracted, dropping tools and losing focus on simple repairs. My boss, Murphy himself, finally pulled me aside. "Danny, what's eating you? You've been off your game all week." "Just some personal stuff, Murph. I'll work through it." "Look, I've known you 15 years. You're the best mechanic I've ever had, but you're no poker player. Whatever's going on at home, don't let it destroy you. I've seen good men go down that road." Murphy was right. I needed help, or at least someone to talk to who wouldn't judge me for what I was planning. That evening, I drove to Ricky's boxing gym on the south side of town. The building used to be a warehouse, and Ricky had converted it into a training facility that attracted everyone from high school kids to ex-cons looking for a legal way to work out their aggression. Ricky Torino had been my best friend since high school. He'd done 2 tours in Iraq, came back with scars on his body and shadows in his eyes. But he'd channeled all that darkness into helping other people fight their demons. I found him in the ring, working pads with a kid who couldn't have been more than 16. Keep your guard up, Tommy. Street fights don't have rules, but boxing does. Discipline first, power second. After the kid left, Ricky climbed out of the ring and grabbed 2 beers from the mini fridge in his office. "You look like hell, Danny. What's going on?" I told him everything. The texts, the motel, the evidence, the mysterious photo. Ricky listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking his head. "So, what do you want to do about it?" he asked when I finished. "I want to hurt them. All of them. I want them to feel what I'm feeling right now." "Okay. But hurt them how?" "You could file for divorce, take the evidence to a lawyer, try to get a decent settlement." "With what money? Sarah makes 3 times what I do. She's got connections, legal knowledge, and apparently she's been planning this for months. I'd get destroyed in court." Ricky leaned back in his chair, studying me. "So what's the alternative?" "I make them destroy themselves, publicly, completely. I want everyone in this town to know exactly what kind of people they are." "That's a dangerous game, Danny. You sure you want to play it?" "They already started playing it. I'm just changing the rules." The next day was Emily's school awards ceremony. Sarah and I sat in the auditorium, playing the part of the happy couple while our daughter received recognition for her debate team achievements. Halfway through the ceremony, Ben Morrison walked in and took a seat 3 rows behind us. 5 minutes later, Sarah excused herself to go to the bathroom. I waited 2 minutes, then followed. I found them in the hallway outside the auditorium, standing closer than any lawyer and client should. Sarah was laughing at something Ben had whispered in her ear. "Danny!" Sarah's voice was too bright, too cheerful. "Look who I ran into. Ben was just telling me about his daughter's soccer tournament." Ben extended his hand with that practiced smile. "Danny, good to see you again. Sarah's been invaluable on my case." I shook his hand, squeezing just a little too hard. "I bet she has. Sarah's always been good at handling difficult situations." Something flickered in Ben's eyes. He'd gotten the message. "Well, I should get back," Sarah said. "Emily's receiving another award soon." As we walked back into the auditorium, I noticed someone watching us from across the hallway. Jenna Martinez, Sarah's best friend since law school. She was supposed to be in Boston this week for her own job, but there she was, wearing sunglasses indoors and trying to look invisible. Jenna had always rubbed me the wrong way. She was the kind of friend who encouraged Sarah's worst impulses, who made snide comments about settling for small-town life and wasting your potential. After the ceremony, as we walked to our cars, I made a decision. "Sarah, I'm going to grab drinks with Ricky. Don't wait up." "Sure, I've got case files to review anyway." I drove to the parking lot across from Ben's apartment complex and waited. Sure enough, at 9:30 p.m., Sarah's Honda pulled into the visitors' parking. She sat in the car for a few minutes, checking her makeup in the mirror, then walked to the building entrance. I gave her 10 minutes, then called the apartment building's main number. "Hi, this is Danny Walsh from Walsh Insurance. I need to verify an address for a claim. Can you confirm that Ben Morrison in Unit 4B has a silver Honda Civic registered to Sarah Walsh parked in his visitor spot?" "I'm not supposed to give out that information, sir." "I understand. I'm just trying to process this claim for vehicle damage that allegedly occurred on your property. If you can't confirm the vehicle is there, I'll have to send an investigator tomorrow morning." There was a pause. "Hold on. Yes, there's a silver Honda in the visitor spot." "Perfect. And can you confirm what time it arrived?" "The log shows 9:34 p.m. "Thank you. You've been very helpful." I hung up and smiled. Documentation was everything. The next morning, I made my first real move. I called Harlan and Associates and asked to speak with Mr. Harlan directly. "Mr. Harlan, this is Danny Walsh, Sarah's husband. I wanted to thank you for being so understanding about her recent absences. Absences? I'm not sure I follow. The sick days, the emergency trips. I know it puts pressure on the firm when a key associate is out unexpectedly. There was a long pause. Mr. Walsh, Sarah hasn't taken any sick days recently, and I'm not aware of any emergency trips. Oh, well, maybe I misunderstood. She's been working such long hours lately, I sometimes lose track of her schedule. That's interesting. Sarah's actually been leaving early quite often recently. She said she was dealing with some family issues. After I hung up, I sat in my truck outside Murphy's, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. Sarah wasn't just cheating, she was lying to everyone, creating elaborate stories to cover her tracks. But someone was still watching me. The anonymous text sender hadn't contacted me again, but I felt eyes on me everywhere I went. In a town this size, secrets were currency, and someone was collecting interest on mine. That afternoon, I drove to Ben's office building. His BMW was in the parking lot, and I noticed something interesting. 3 spark plug wires were hanging loose under the hood. He'd been too lazy or too stupid to fix my sabotage properly. I walked into the building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where Ben's real estate development company had a small suite. The receptionist was young, probably fresh out of high school. "Hi, I'm Danny Walsh from Walsh Auto Repair. Ben Morrison called about his BMW having engine trouble. He wanted me to give him an estimate for the repair work. Oh, Mr. Morrison is in a meeting right now, but he's been complaining about his car all week. He said someone vandalized it." "Vandalized? That's terrible. What kind of damage?" "He said someone messed with the engine. It keeps stalling out. He's been having to get rides from friends." "I see. And these friends? Do they pick him up here at the office?" The receptionist glanced around nervously. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but there's this married woman who's been giving him rides. It seems kind of inappropriate, you know. She comes by almost every day." "A married woman? That does sound inappropriate." "Yeah, she's a lawyer. Pretty, but she wears this really strong perfume that makes the whole office smell like flowers for hours after she leaves." I thanked the receptionist and left, my head spinning. Sarah was being careless, leaving a trail of evidence everywhere she went. That evening, Emily was at debate practice, so I had the house to myself. I went through Sarah's things more carefully this time, looking for anything I might have missed. In her jewelry box, behind a pair of earrings I'd given her for our anniversary, I found a key. It was small, brass, with the number 247 stamped on it. A storage unit key. I spent an hour on Google, identifying every storage facility within 20 miles. There were 4 possibilities. I drove to each one, looking for Unit 247. I found it at Secure Space Storage, a rundown facility on the outskirts of town. Unit 247 was in the back row, away from the main office and security cameras. The key turned easily. Inside, I found a mattress, some blankets, a cooler, and a cardboard box full of what I can only describe as evidence of a double life. Photos of Sarah and Ben together, going back months. Hotel receipts, love letters written in Sarah's handwriting. But the most interesting thing was a manila folder labeled DW Contingency Plans. Inside were photocopies of our financial records, a draft divorce petition already filled out, and a handwritten list of my behavioral problems that could be used against me in court. Things like anger management issues, potential alcoholism, and history of violent outbursts, all complete fabrications, but documented in Sarah's careful lawyer handwriting. At the bottom of the folder was a business card for a private investigator, with a note, "Retainer paid," awaiting evidence of adultery or domestic violence. I sat on the storage unit floor, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage, and finally understood the scope of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated plan to destroy me and take everything I'd worked for. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Storage Unit 247 is interesting, but you're missing the bigger picture. Check Sarah's phone records from 6 months ago." I stared at the message, my hands shaking with rage. Whoever was sending these texts knew everything. They'd been watching this unfold from the beginning, but why were they helping me? I spent the next day at the county courthouse, using my lunch break to access public records. Sarah's law firm had filed incorporation papers 6 months ago for a new business, Morrison Development Consulting, with Sarah Walsh and Benjamin Morrison as equal partners. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning to go into business together, using my wife's legal expertise and Ben's family money to create their own empire. The business plan, filed with the state, outlined their strategy: acquire distressed properties around town, flip them using cheap labor, and sell them to out-of-state buyers looking for authentic small-town charm. It was a solid plan. It was also built on the assumption that Sarah would be free of her current obligations, namely me. That evening, I confronted her directly for the first time. "Sarah, we need to talk." She was in our bedroom, supposedly reviewing case files, but I could see she was actually texting someone on her burner phone. "I'm busy, Danny. Can it wait?" "No, it can't. I know about Ben. I know about the storage unit. I know about Morrison Development Consulting." The color drained from her face, but her lawyer training kicked in quickly. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been planning this for months. The affair, the business partnership, the divorce. I know you hired a private investigator to try to dig up dirt on me." Sarah set down her phone and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "You went through my things. You've been lying to me for months. So, what do you want, Danny? You want me to apologize? You want me to promise it won't happen again?" She stood up, crossing her arms. "Fine. I'm sorry you found out this way, but I'm not sorry it happened. 22 years, Sarah. 22 years of marriage, and this is how it ends? It ended a long time ago. You just weren't paying attention." She walked to the window, looking out at the street. "Do you know what it's like being married to someone with no ambition, no drive? You've been fixing cars for 15 years, Danny. The same job, the same routine, the same conversations every single day. I thought you liked our life. I tolerated it. I kept waiting for you to want more, to push yourself, to become someone worth being married to. But you never did." Her words hit like physical blows. "So you decided to find someone who was?" "Ben sees potential in me. He wants to build something together. He doesn't just want to coast through life fixing other people's problems." "What about Emily? What about our daughter?" "Emily will be fine. She's smart, like me. She'll understand that sometimes people outgrow each other." I stared at my wife, this stranger wearing Sarah's face, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had been breaking slowly for months. This was something else, something that had kept me civilized, restrained, willing to play by the rules. "You're right about one thing," I said quietly. "This marriage is over. But if you think you're going to destroy me in the process, you're wrong. Danny, don't make this harder than it has to be. I've already filed the preliminary paperwork. We can do this amicably, or we can do it the hard way. But either way, it's happening." "Then I guess we're doing it the hard way." I left the bedroom and went to the garage, where I opened my laptop and began typing. If Sarah wanted to play lawyer games, I'd give her something to practice on. The next morning I sent anonymous emails to 3 people: Mr. Harlan, the State Bar Association, and the town newspaper editor. The emails contained photocopies of Sarah's fake timesheets, evidence of her using firm resources for personal business, and documentation of her relationship with a client, a clear violation of professional ethics. By noon, Sarah was home, having been suspended pending an investigation. "You son of a bastard," she said, slamming the front door so hard the windows rattled. "You sent those emails." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Danny. Who else would have access to that information? Maybe your private investigator found more than you bargained for. Maybe Ben got tired of sneaking around. Maybe Jenna decided you were getting too sloppy. I shrugged. Lots of possibilities. This is going to backfire on you. I'll make sure of it. Good luck with that. You might want to focus on finding a new job first. That evening, my mysterious text contact reached out again. Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. Check your email. The email contained a single attachment, a video file labeled Storage Unit Confession. I opened it and watched Sarah and Ben in the storage unit having an explicit conversation about their plans for the future. But more importantly, they discussed their strategy for the divorce, including Ben's offer to pay for Sarah's legal fees and their plan to hide assets in the new business. The video was dated 3 days ago. Someone had been recording them without their knowledge. At the end of the video, a third voice could be heard off camera. Are you sure Danny doesn't suspect anything? It was Jenna Martinez. Everything clicked into place. Jenna hadn't been in Boston. She'd been here, orchestrating this entire situation from behind the scenes. But why? I called Ricky and asked him to meet me at the gym after hours. When I showed him the video, his expression grew dark. Danny, this is bigger than just an affair. Someone's been playing a long game here, and I don't think you know all the players yet. What do you mean? Think about it. Who benefits if you and Sarah destroy each other in a messy divorce? Who's been encouraging Sarah to be more ambitious, more dissatisfied with her life? Jenna. But she's Sarah's best friend. Is she? Or is she someone with her own agenda who's been using your wife to get what she wants? Ricky pulled out his phone and showed me a news article from the Boston Globe, dated 6 months ago. Local attorney faces embezzlement charges. The photo showed Jenna Martinez being led out of a downtown Boston law firm in handcuffs. She's been hiding out here, Ricky said, using Sarah's couch, her connections, her resources, and now she's positioned herself to take over Sarah's life completely. But why the elaborate setup? Why not just ask Sarah for help? Because Sarah would never leave you for Jenna, but she might leave you for Ben, especially if Jenna was there to support her through the difficult transition. I stared at the article, my mind reeling. So Ben's just a pawn? Look at the timeline. When did Sarah start acting differently? When did Jenna show up in town? When did Ben suddenly need so much legal help? It had all started 6 months ago, right after Jenna's arrest. She's been blackmailing Ben, I realized. That's why he's going along with this. Jenna has something on him. And now she has something on Sarah, too. The ethics violations, the affair, the business partnership. Sarah's career is over unless she plays along. But what's the end game? Ricky leaned back in his chair. Think about it. Sarah loses her job, her marriage, her reputation. She's desperate, vulnerable, dependent on the only friend who's standing by her. Jenna becomes the hero, the savior, the person Sarah can't live without. And I get destroyed in the process. You were never the target, Danny. You were just collateral damage. That night, I sat in my garage, drinking beer and planning my next move. If Jenna thought she could manipulate my life like a chess game, she was about to learn that I didn't play by anyone else's rules. I started by researching everything I could find about Jenna Martinez. Her arrest in Boston was just the tip of the iceberg. She'd been involved in a scheme to defraud client accounts, stealing money from people who trusted her to handle their legal affairs. But more interesting was what I found in the local public records. 3 months ago, Jenna had quietly purchased a small house on the outskirts of town, paying cash. The same week, she'd incorporated a new business, Martinez Legal Consulting. She wasn't hiding out here. She was setting up shop, planning to take over Sarah's client base once my wife's career imploded. The next morning, I drove to Jenna's house. It was a modest ranch-style home, nothing fancy, but well-maintained. Her car was in the driveway, a red sedan with Massachusetts plates. I knocked on the front door, When Jenna answered, she looked genuinely surprised to see me. "Danny, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Jenna. About Sarah, about Ben, about the video you took in the storage unit." Her face went pale, but she stepped aside to let me in. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been orchestrating this whole thing from the beginning. The question is why?" Jenna's living room was sparsely furnished, like someone who was planning to move again soon. But what caught my attention was the wall of monitors in the corner, surveillance equipment that could have come from a private investigator's office. "Nice setup," I said. "How long have you been watching us?" "Danny, you're upset, and I understand that. But you're not thinking clearly." "Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. You used Sarah's loneliness, Ben's weakness, and my trust to create this whole situation. But what I can't figure out is what you get out of it." Jenna sat down on her couch, suddenly looking older and more tired. "You want the truth? Fine. Sarah's been wasting her talent in this stifling town for years. She could be making real money, handling important cases, building something that matters. So you decided to blow up her marriage to motivate her? I gave her an opportunity to see what she was missing. Ben was convenient, attractive, wealthy, available. Sarah made her own choices. With your encouragement, your planning, your manipulation, I prefer to think of it as guidance." I walked over to the surveillance equipment. "And this? You've been recording everything?" "Insurance, in case things got complicated." "They're about to get very complicated, Jenna, because I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what you've been doing. You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. "You're on camera discussing the plan. Your voice is clear, and I'm betting if I dig deeper, I'll find evidence of the blackmail, the embezzlement, all of it." Jenna stood up, her lawyer mask slipping back into place. "What do you want, Danny?" "I want you gone. Out of town, out of Sarah's life, out of my business. Tonight." "And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, copies of everything I've found go to the police, the State Bar Association, and every news outlet in the region. Your choice." Jenna stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Fine. But Danny, Sarah's not going to thank you for this. She's made her choice. Even without me, she's not coming back to you." "I know. But at least she'll be making her own choices instead of following your script." As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: control. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was setting the terms instead of reacting to someone else's moves. But I wasn't done yet. Sarah and Ben still had to face the consequences of their actions, and I had one more card to play. The annual Founders' Day block party was 3 days away, the biggest social event of the year, where half the town gathered in Memorial Park to celebrate our community's history. It was also the perfect stage for the finale I had in mind. Jenna left town that night, just as I'd demanded. But before she disappeared, she sent one final video to my phone, a recording of Sarah and Ben planning their next moves, unaware that their puppet master had abandoned them. In the video, Sarah was cold, calculating, discussing how to maximize her divorce settlement and minimize the damage to her reputation. Ben was whining about the investigation into his business practices, worried that his family's money wouldn't be enough to protect him. Neither of them showed a moment's concern for Emily, for our family, for the collateral damage they were causing. I spent the next 2 days making preparations. I contacted the local newspaper editor, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and several prominent business owners in town. I told them I had important information about corruption in the local legal community that would be revealed at the Founders' Day celebration. I also reached out to Emily, who was staying at her friend's house since the tension at home had become unbearable. "Dad, what's going on? Mom won't talk to me and everyone at school is whispering about something." "Em, I need you to know that whatever happens in the next few days, I love you. You're the best thing your mother and I ever did together, and none of this is your fault." "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" Probably. But that doesn't change how much I love you, or how proud I am of the person you're becoming. Emily started crying. I just want things to go back to normal. I know, sweetheart. But sometimes normal wasn't as good as we thought it was. On the morning of Founders Day, I loaded my truck with a portable PA system I'd borrowed from Ricky, a laptop, and several folders of evidence. Sarah had spent the night at Ben's apartment, unaware of what was coming. The block party was in full swing by noon. Families spread blankets on the grass, kids ran around with face paint and cotton candy, and local politicians worked the crowd, shaking hands and kissing babies. I set up my equipment near the main stage, where the mayor was scheduled to give his annual address at 2 p.m. But at 1:45, I stepped up to the microphone. Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Danny Walsh. I've lived in this town my whole life, fixed your cars, paid my taxes, and tried to be a good neighbor. The crowd began to quiet down, sensing that something unusual was happening. Today, I want to talk to you about trust, about what happens when the people you believe in, the people you build your life around, decide that your trust doesn't matter. I saw Sarah pushing through the crowd, her face white with panic. Ben was behind her, looking like he wanted to disappear. 6 months ago, my wife Sarah began an affair with Ben Morrison. But this wasn't just about intimacy or romance. It was about money, manipulation, and a plan to destroy everything I'd worked for. Danny, stop this, Sarah shouted, but her voice was lost in the murmur of the crowd. I clicked a button on my laptop, and the first video began playing on the large screen behind me. Sarah and Ben in the storage unit, discussing their plans for the divorce, their new business, and their strategy for taking my assets. The crowd fell silent, watching in fascination and horror as the private drama played out in high definition. This is what betrayal looks like, I continued. Not just the affair, but the calculated planning, the lies to employers, the ethics violations, the fraud. I played the second video. Sarah and Ben discussing how to hide money in their new business, how to manufacture evidence against me, how to ensure I'd be left with nothing. Sarah Walsh is not just an unfaithful wife, I said. She's a corrupt lawyer who's been using her position to benefit her lover's business interests, violating every ethical standard of her profession. The crowd was getting restless now, some people calling out questions, others trying to get closer to the stage. I saw Mr. Harlan in the audience, his face grim as he watched his former employee's reputation crumble in real time. And Ben Morrison isn't just a home wrecker. He's been using his family's money and political connections to manipulate zoning laws, acquire properties through questionable means, and exploit this community for his own profit. I played a third video, one I'd obtained through my own investigation, showing Ben bribing a city council member to approve a controversial development project. These people saw our town, our community, our lives as nothing more than resources to be exploited. They thought they could destroy a 22-year marriage, steal a man's life savings, and corrupt our local government without consequences. Sarah was trying to push through the crowd toward the stage, but people were blocking her path, some of them angry, others just curious to see how this would end. They were wrong. I clicked one final button, and every piece of evidence I'd gathered, financial records, text messages, photos, videos, legal documents, began scrolling across the screen in a devastating slideshow of corruption and betrayal. This is what happens when you underestimate a small-town mechanic, when you assume that someone without a college degree or a fancy title doesn't know how to fight back. The crowd erupted in chaos. People were shouting questions, taking photos with their phones, demanding answers from Sarah and Ben. Local reporters were frantically taking notes, and I could see police officers moving through the crowd, though I wasn't sure if they were there to arrest someone or just maintain order. Sarah Walsh and Ben Morrison thought they could rewrite the rules, ignore their obligations, and destroy anyone who got in their way. Today, this community gets to decide whether that kind of behavior has consequences. I stepped back from the microphone and watched as my carefully constructed revenge played out exactly as I'd planned. Sarah's career was over. No law firm would hire her after this public humiliation. Ben's business reputation was destroyed, and his family's political connections wouldn't be enough to save him from the corruption charges that were sure to follow. But the most satisfying moment came when I saw Emily in the crowd. She wasn't looking at the screen or listening to the chaos around her. She was looking at me, and for the first time in months, I saw respect in her eyes. She understood that her father wasn't the weak, passive man her mother had described. He was someone who fought back when cornered, who refused to be destroyed without taking his enemies down with him. As the police finally reached the stage and began asking questions, as reporters shoved microphones in my face, as Sarah and Ben tried to escape through the crowd, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete satisfaction. They had wanted to destroy me quietly, professionally, legally. Instead, they had created their own public execution, and I had simply provided the stage. The last thing I saw before the police led me away for questioning was Sarah, standing alone in the middle of the crowd, her perfect lawyer composure finally cracking as she realized that her carefully planned future had just evaporated in front of half the town. 22 years of marriage, and it all came down to this: a public reckoning where everyone got exactly what they deserved.